Right, all right, all right. Uncle Josh Chanel, Protect, Peace, Life, Prosperity, and Health. This is your brother, Uncle Manu, Siapanu, also known as Unc Manu. And, we are going live to deal with some situations real quick. Um, we are talking about the subject, it's more so just a sentiment we want to kind of get involved in. I entitled this particular broadcast "Slow Down." Like, hold on, slow down, take your time, breaks. You know what I mean? Um, what are we talking about? Who are we talking to? Okay, there's a current trend that's going on in the community amongst scholars, amongst teachers, some of my colleagues even, dealing with debunking, you know debunking misinformation, debunking what we have classified as pseudo scholarship, etc., so on. And I'm definitely all for it. I'm here for it. But in the process, we are, actually stepping into the realm of making claims, without first doing our due diligence thoroughly, right? Without doing a thorough investigation, uh, participating in thorough research to actually, make sure that the position that we're going to take is based solely upon what it is that we've actually found after exhaustive investigation. Okay, after rigorous investigation, and then we make claims, okay, based upon what we have found, okay, or what we did not find, right? So, this is important because, in the process of, taking this particular approach, right, and taking some extreme stances in the pursuit of weeding out pseudo information, pseudo scholarship, misinformation, false claims, etc., so on. Sometimes because certain things are or have been associated with people that have presented misinformation or have gathered their information from questionable sources or did not have sources at all, we automatically take certain positions, okay? And in a sense, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. Another way to kind of look at this thing is another issue is the attempt, and particularly our focus and is on African traditions, African spirituality, in particular, Nile Valley culture and spiritual traditions, Kemetic spirituality, right? That's where our primary focus is. And in dealing with Kemet, right, it is important that we deal with Kemet as we find it. Okay. And we should speak on Kemet based upon the information that is actually there, what the ancestors actually wrote, what they actually left for us. Okay, first and foremost, right? And based on that, we should present what we find, whether we agree with it or not, whether we believe in the things that we found or believe in the things that they believed in, is neither here nor there. You know what I mean? But when speaking and making claims about Kemet and saying that Kemet did not deal with so and so or such and such, they didn't believe in such and such. Okay, this should be based solely on the information that we found after we've performed thorough, rigorous research and investigation. Right? So, in the process, and it's been a couple of months, I've been kind of sitting back and observing the trend. Normally I don't step out and get involved until it's something, serious, right? And I'm like, okay, I can't take it no damn. So, I step in. But this one here, it's like, okay, we need to nip it in the bud, okay, before it actually takes off and it goes too far. And over the process of a couple of months, okay, over the span of a couple of months, we've actually we've seen certain things that are popular, certain concepts, certain ideas, certain practices that are popular, within the quote unquote conscious community that, were associated with Kemet without the source material, without the proper references being there. Okay. We saw these things being attacked. Okay. Now, some of these things, okay, absolutely, you don't find it in Kemet. So, those statements that they are not in Kemet and they should not be associated with Kemet, those things are correct. Okay. But then there are some things that were attacked because they were in close proximity to, certain teachers or certain schools of thought. So let's speak straight words. Like people talked about the Euro woman, right? Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society. And, how a lot of the quote unquote occult teachings of the early 20th century came out of her school. Okay, you had a school at the dawning of Egyptology, is the way that it's said. At the dawning of Egyptology, you had two schools of thought, one based on science and one based on pseudoscience, right? It's the way I think it was presented. Okay, and with the Theosophical Society, because they did not understand the things that they were encountering, or they were mystified and weren't able to actually take the time, or didn't take the time to learn how to properly study the information, study and learn the language, and actually learn the culture. They begin to associate through what's called lookership, or this reminds me of this particular symbol that I see over here in India. This reminds me of this particular symbol that I see over here with the practitioners of the Kabbalah. This here over here reminds me of Freemasonry. You see, they took that approach, right, and then began to superimpose a lot of Eastern mysticism, things of that nature, on what it was that they were coming across in Kemet. All right. So with that, I've seen meditation attacked. Kemet and African people don't meditate, they say, right? That was one claim that was made. Okay. What's another? Gemstones, right? Kemet and African people don't deal with stones and gemstones, etc. So on. This is that Blavatsky stuff. It's pseudo stuff, right? That's another claim. Okay. And just recently, over the past couple of days, some good brothers, right, have took issue with the concept of reincarnation, right? African people don't believe in reincarnation, or Kemet, the ancestors in Kemet didn't deal with or didn't believe or have a concept of reincarnation. Okay. And then, the classification of reincarnation as pseudoscience. Okay. Right. And then last but not least, I think, as far as what I have, if anybody else want to, bring up another particular subject as a point of discussion that fits within the context, within the parameters of what we're discussing here, some other points that have been made, feel free to do so. But astrology is another one. Okay. Now, my issue in disagreeing with the points that were made is not to get someone to believe in any of the things that were mentioned. Whether you believe in astrology is neither here nor there. Okay. Whether you believe in gemstones is neither here nor there. You know what I mean? Whether you believe in reincarnation, it's neither here nor there. Right? All we simply care about in this particular instance is what does the actual evidence support. Okay? Did the people of Kemet, right? And we can throw in some other African groups as well. Don't have a problem. Did African people deal with, believe in, or have a concept within their worldview that pertains to reincarnation, right? And let's speak straight words when we say reincarnation, because we do not want to fall victim to or commit what's called the reduction fallacy. Okay? We don't want to try and take a complex issue or an issue with intricacies and try to reduce it to some form of level just so we don't have to deal with the shit, or we can just come out correct at the end. Okay? No, when we talk in reincarnation, we're talking about a concept of some particular aspect of their being going on to live and exist in another form, in another body. Okay? Physically living again after the death of one physical body, one body. Okay? Coming back and living in another time, in another body. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Did they believe in that? You see, do African people in general have a concept of that?
You.
Okay, that's what we're talking about, right? Is there any evidence within the text to support these concepts or the idea that our ancestors held hold to these things or believe in these things? Right? I'm going to say yes. There absolutely is textual evidence beyond terms for such a concept existing in the language, because those terms exist. Absolutely. But there are also stories. There is literature. Okay? That's all about them coming back, being born literally again. Okay? There are stories of the Ba traveling. And that's another important point. If we're going to discuss these things and the Ka is brought up within the context of the quote unquote false door within the tomb, right? Then the Ka, right? We're speaking about the Ka. We have to understand the Ka and how they understood the Ka and how it functioned in contrast to, let's say, the Ba. You see? Our ancestors understood, as it pertains to the anatomy of being, that each individual is comprised of, right? They're constructed of various components, right? Quote unquote energy bodies, if you will. And at the quote unquote death or transition of the person from this physical body, which they called the Khat, okay, the different aspects of the individual went on to do different things. right? And the Ka did not do what the Ba did, right? The part that they venerate in the practice of ancestral veneration, in the practice of making offerings and sacrifices. You see? And when you read the offering various, what they're calling the offering formulas, why do they end into the Ka of versus the Ba? What does the Ba go on to do? Let's talk about it. Right? So they absolutely had the concept of reincarnation. We're going to deal with it. Okay, talk about the evidence. What the evidence supports. We're going to talk about astrology. What is it? What is astrology? You know, are there various types of astrological systems? Okay, and what is the difference between them? Right? There are some systems that are very simple, and then there are some that are very complex and sophisticated. Right? Did any of them exist in Kemet or in any other part of Africa? Right? How do we know? Okay, and then gemstones, we can deal with that. And you know, are there any texts that speak to whether or not our ancestors used gemstones for any reason at all, like they felt like they had some kind of effect, etc., so on? Okay, and particularly, are there any texts that speak to them being used for healing purposes? Okay, we want to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like I said, this is something I've been kind of just sitting back and observing for some time and not really speaking on. But it's important that when we are in the process of reviving and reconstructing a culture and the tradition, that we don't make the mistake on the extreme far end or opposite end of the spectrum that we are trying to correct or attack. That in our taking the extreme position on the opposite end of the spectrum, that we don't find ourselves committing the same errors that those that we oppose to are. Making statements based on what is not found, based on our opinion, based upon our Europeanized or Negropeanized physicalist, you see, hyper-reductionist worldview. That's important. We have to stop trying to despiritualize African people, African culture, and African traditions just because we don't have the experience. We haven't had the experience yet to actually shake the foundation and totally shift the paradigm of our thinking in terms of what reality is, because we're uninitiated and don't have those experiences. We want to only hold on to what's coddling and acceptable to our current worldview and try to stretch that over Africa. No. Hey, you can't do that. You can't do that. So, before we get into it, we got some of the family, some of the Hinisu family in the building, good brother, Sin Behudet Ma'at in the building. We also got the good brother, Irief from the Ketu Ip building. And we want to also shout out some of the family that I see in the chat room. See the good brother Quadwo in the building. Okay, Sin Taiji in the building. Good brother Jador, pardon me, in the building. Brother Simra in the building. Okay, see the good brother Ujo Sankofa in the building, right? Dua for tuning in. Want to talk about the subject, man. You know what I mean? Want to deal with these issues, right? Because before it's all said and done, We're going to have to engage in a process of banging out an orthodoxy in terms of Nile Valley culture, in terms of Kemetic spirituality, right? Since we all want to make sure that we're on point, we're going to have to bang out an orthodoxy. So this is a conversation that was bound to happen regardless. This is a dialogue that was bound to happen regardless. It has to happen, right? And the interest is truth. Okay, the interest is the true reconstruction of our culture, our ancestral culture and tradition. That's it. That's it. You know what I mean? Now, whether you think certain things are beneficial or not, that's another issue. That's another conversation for another time. But we're talking about what is and what is not Nile Valley culture and spiritual traditions. What is and what is not African spirituality. That's what we're talking about. All right. So let's get into it. Y'all got something y'all wanna add or say before we get in the mix?
I'm saying you covered a lot, Nisu. The last thing when you were talking about, it really hit home when you were mentioning, discussing that the ultra reductionist and the position that people are taking as far as going to the extreme opposite pole of what they're fighting against, which is lookership, pseudo teachings and the likes, but at the same time, in doing that, they're going on that opposite end, and they're joining in with those who have always stood at that opposite end. At the opposite end of that is straight up materialism, and if it's one thing our people, us as African people, Black African people, that we have in common is that we are indeed the most spiritual people on the planet. And when you take the position of disconnecting yourself from that spiritual essence that permeates all of existence and try to reduce it to a materialist paradigm, you are in fact in line with a tradition that is totally anti-African and against, all African traditions, because that's what they do. They always reduce all African traditions to, oh, it's just this. It is just this. To who? To the practitioners or to the actual lookers? Because if you're not in the tradition, you're outside looking in, and you're not privy to what it actually is at its core. You see, because from what I've gathered with African traditions is that there's levels of truth. There's surface levels, and then it keeps going deeper into more intimate levels the deeper you get into the tradition. So if you're, just looking at the tradition as a quote unquote scientist with tangibles, then you're not really in the tradition. You're an observer. And until you get initiated, you're not qualified to speak on that which you know nothing about. That's what that's just what I get. And we need to really go into that, because there's a lot of that going on when I see people talking about many of the African traditions. But then when you question them about certain other people in the tradition that talk about spiritual matters, they hop, skip, and jump all over the place when it comes to discussing what these actual practitioners are saying. I think we were talking about Malidome Som and how he talks about his initiation. I mean, where's the scientific method in that? But I digress on that. I guess we'll go a little bit deeper into that, when we try to link all African traditions that are intimately connected with maybe different names, but the same undercurrent, you see. And that's a problem, because we have a problem with a lot of scholarship going on. And there are actually, I've noticed that there are, actually practitioners that are dealing with scholarship that aren't checking, the scholarship that's going on, being that they are initiated. You see, you're initiated, and you're allowing the person that's uninitiated to reduce your tradition, then you know, there's a problem there. You're allowing, you know, your tradition to be looked at as pseudo or something that cannot be proven. Of course, it can't be proven if you're not initiated. But I digress. let me just.
Two. I say, you know, excellent points. You know what I mean? I was actually over here, you know, getting some things prepared. You know, getting some magical papyri or medical papyri, pardon me, prepared. You know, that deal with certain prescriptions, you know, pertaining to gemstones and things of that nature. So, you know, just you know, just looking for a little something. Irief, you got anything you wanted to add on? And definitely, you know, we looking forward to some questions and some comments from the you know, from those that are tuning in on YouTube. You know, please feel free to leave your comment and your questions in the you know, in the chat room. And definitely we want to make sure that we answer or address, you know, whatever it is that you have to say.
To Nisu. So really, you know, I'm just grateful to be able to catch this live. This is something that I think should definitely be circulating, you know, throughout our community. You know, getting down to things that are, I guess, applied, used, or, you know, utilizing Kemet. In actuality, you know, we're going to be getting to the bottom of their usages and using some resources, primary resources, to kind of confirm or validate this information. You know, kind of opposed to what these so-called scholars are talking about. And, you know, I've came across some other posts. You know, I don't know if we could talk about it, because I think it's a little different. But just even some of the posts that I'll see from some people in the community, and they got a lot of a following. So, you know, it kind of bothers me to see that they're just disseminating this information out there without being able to validate it, without being credible. They're not a credible source whatsoever. But obviously, anyway, you know, when it comes to the like ancestral veneration and even divination and oracles within Kemet, you know, I think it's a little different than what we're talking about here, because we're talking about things that are just kind of said are not used in Kemet in general. But there are some people who consider themselves conscious or so-called woke or what have you, that kind of beat down on anything that's maybe not like tangible, if you will. So it'd be nice if you could discuss that a little bit too. I don't know if maybe that'll be a part 2 or what have you, but either way it goes, like I said, it's a privilege to be here and hear this one right now.
I like it. Divination, it's definitely another one. You know, or oracles, as you say.
Too.
You know, divination, you know, we mentioned astrology, which is a form of divination. You know, I think the issue or question is whether or not that particular form of divination is something that African people utilized or engaged in. You know, I think that definitely there's enough evidence to support the fact that they did. Like, this is a fact. Whether it looks exactly like what we get by way of Western astrology or tropical astrology or whatever the case may be, or whether it looks closer to what we find in the East, right? Or if it's somewhere in between or something even much more simple than that. You know, we want to deal with it. So we want to talk about that. So do I definitely we can get into that. All right, so let's see where we gonna start. Maybe we'll start with the topic of today. Okay, the hot topic today on the social media, which was reincarnation. Okay, reincarnation. And you know, this has actually been going on for about a day or two. Actually, this particular conversation, it started out with you know, the good brothers over at the Ra Squad making a statement, you know, or I think it was a post that classified, you know, reincarnation within the category of pseudoscience, and I think astrology was over there as well. Then it went beyond that to saying that, you know, African people not have a concept of reincarnation, and some members of the squad actually stepped in to attempt to correct that statement, and making it clear that you're absolutely reincarnation, and making it clear we're not talking about the fact that energy is not a transformed or destroyed, or energy is neither created nor destroyed. Pardon me. We're not talking about the law of conservation of energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, just changes form. That's not what we're talking about when we mean reincarnation. Also, in a sense, everything reincarnates constantly, 365, 24/7. No, that's not what we're talking about. We mean specifically that a person lives, let's say they live 60 years in this physical form, and after 60 years, right, or at the age of 60, they die, like what we call death, right? That happens. Another part of them, whether you want to call it the soul or the spirit or whatever the case may be, right, goes on to come back, born again in another body at another time. Okay? Right? Living lifetimes, right? Another lifetime. Okay? This is something that this is what we mean when we say reincarnation. I think this is what everyone that was on the joint arguing their points was referring to. Not making it so broad and ambiguous to where it loses any kind of relevance, okay, or sense of importance. You know what I mean? Not reducing it to the point where it loses any kind of importance, okay, or it begins to take on another form that's beyond the issue that we're discussing, okay. Absolutely, there's a concept of reincarnation within Nile Valley culture and spiritual traditions, right? And we're going to start there. We don't have to start anywhere else. We're going to start there because that's the earliest that we have on record. Earliest culture and tradition that we have on record is in the Nile Valley. So it's enough to start there. Okay, that's our classical African culture, right? So you have terms, phrases, right? Such as repeating life, right? Wahem Ankh, Wahem Masut, repeating births. Okay, you have certain, epithets or forces that are associated with the ancestors and certain aspects of the individual, right? Sabebi Nhe, okay? Or the traverser, right? Traverser or traveler of a million years, or a cycle of a million years. And some people extend it to mean eternity, right? Traverse of eternity. It's important that we study the text pertaining to ancestral veneration, the so-called pyramid text, the so-called coffin text, the Pertim Hira, the Amduat, okay, the Book of Gates, right? We study these things and understand exactly what it is that the cycles or the phases of Ra represent, the rising and setting of Ra represent, and its travels through the Duat or the spirit realm, what they represent beyond just the cycles of the day, beyond the cycles, the rising and the settings of the physical sun, right? Okay, what is it that's actually happening and taking place? Okay, and how did they associate that with their ancestral veneration practice? You know what I mean? Just to be clear, when Ra, or they associated the West, the Western horizon, with the entrance into what's called the Duat. Okay, and when Ra entered into the Duat, or the spirit realm, that was considered to be his death. Okay, his death, right? And he takes on the form Yoth, okay, or and he's ram-headed, right? He has the head of a Ba, right? He has the head of a Ba when he goes into the spirit realm and he travels to the spirit realm. Now, there is a transformation or a regeneration process that takes place when there's a union between Ra and Osir. Okay? Ra and Osir. Now, Osir, okay, represents the ancestors. This is why in our tradition, each and every ancestor, each and every person that transitions, right, that quote unquote dies, in the process of elevating and venerating them as an ancestor, they are elevated as an Osir, right? So this is why we have the Pert Imhira of the Osir Ani, the Osir Nefsini, right? The Osir Nu, etc. so on. Right? Hunefer, the Osir Hunefer. This is why they're called the Osir, because the living individual, right, is associated with Heru. And when Heru goes on to make his transition, right, he becomes Osir. Right? So the ancestor is elevated into a position of power in the spirit realm as an Osir. That's what that represents. An elevated and empowered ancestor. That's why we call the ancestors Osir. You see? Now, Ra represents life, right? The force of life, the creative energy. You know what I mean? In the coffin text, I want to say it's coffin text, passage 80, right? Ra says, Rin E Ankh. My name is life. So here we have the principle, Ra, representing life, joining with Osir, representing the ancestral principle. And from that union, okay, Sukari comes into existence. And it's real deep, because in the union is said to take place within an egg. Right? And I don't want to go too deep into it, because, some of this information, you got to get involved in whatnot to really dig into it. Right? But the union is said to take place within an egg in the domain that belongs to the Neter Sukari. Okay? Or Sekar, right? And from this, right, the Ra Osir fuse, right, or Sukari goes forward, right, through the Duat, ultimately to emerge in the east to rise again as Khepri, right? And that Khepri is the reborn Ra, by entering into the physical plane or Ta, okay? And that Khepri is also associated with the Neter called Heru Pakrad. And the identification of Khepri with Heru Pakrad, or Ra Pakrad, Ra the child, is something that, you know, is without question. We can provide the primaries for that without a problem in no time. Okay? But this constant rising and setting of Ra, and the transformation process and the joining with the ancestors that take place, right? Joining with Osir that takes place, right? In the depiction of Ra as a ram, and the term for ram being Ba, which is paronymy, which is meant to reflect upon the Ba aspect of a person and its role and function and how it keeps going, even though the Ka are going to do something else and are left behind. Right? This is important. It's not simple. Like, you know, when people talk soul, when people talk spirit, they talk etc. So on. You know, our ancestors didn't simply use, you know, one term to describe everything that made up the quote unquote non-grossly physical aspect of a person. Right? You got to talk about the Ba, you got to talk about the Ib, you got to talk about the Ka, you got to talk about the Kat, right? The shoot or Kaibit. You know, you got to talk about these things and understand that each one had a particular function. Each one, okay, each one had a particular purpose, right? That they carried out, okay, and went on to do different things upon the transition or death of an individual. Okay, yo, Behudet, Irief, y'all got anything y'all wanna say or add on to that? And do we have any questions or comments in the chat room so far?
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, with these different aspects of existence, you mentioned the Ba, Ka, Kaibet, and a few others. Where can we find these aspects mentioned? Where, you know, where they can be looked into by those of us who are seeking to find, you know, some correlation to, you know, definitions in modern time.
Okay. So, you know, this is a particular subject that would definitely require studying the actual literature and looking at these terms within the proper context, because when quote unquote Egyptologists define these terms, sometimes they use equivalent terms and it just muddies the whole thing. So if you're calling the Ba spirit and you're calling the Ka spirit, or you're calling the Ka soul and you're calling the Ba soul, you know what I mean? Or you're calling the Ba life force and you're calling the Ka vital principle, like, yo, this is a way that things can easily get confused. Like if you ask them the difference between the spirit and the soul, most people, they can't tell you the difference between the spirit and the soul. You know what I mean? It's that simple. So this is something that has to be studied within the context of, you know, the actual literature that pertains to them mostly. Okay, and that literature, you know, I highly suggest that you read the Coffin text. You know, just within the Coffin text alone, you know, as it pertains to the Ba, there are several passages or chapters that pertain to the Ba alone, right? And the process through which it actually comes in and out of the world. You see? You know, talking about the, I say, another text, right? To understand the Ka. read the ancestral veneration text, because when we're talking about the Ka, the aspect of the individual that we engaged in our rituals, right? When we talk about ancestral veneration, right? When we are servicing the shrine, right? When we are making offerings and sacrifices, it serves the purpose of satisfying or pleasing the Ka. It is the Ka that we engage through the Kari, okay, or the shrine. Okay, Kari or Karu, right, or Kari, the mouth of the Ka, or the door of the Ka. You see? So the Ka is the part of the individual that, speaks to their personality. Okay, who they were in that lifetime, the sum total of experiences, the qualities, the genius, right? The abilities, the talents. That's the Ka. Right? You read, I want to say it's chapter 39b in the Pertim Hira. And it refers to the Ka as the individual's lifetime. Okay? The Ka is that part that we engage. And when we are venerating the ancestors, when we call on the Rin, right? When we call the Rin, we are invoking the Ka of the ancestors. When we call on the ancestors for assistance, we are calling on their Ka. The Ba has gone on to do something else. It's gone. It's going on. It keeps moving. You see? That's what the cycles of Ra, right? And him taking on the form of the ram, represent. A good text to look at this within the the parameters of reincarnation, because that's what we're talking about, right? Looking at it, a good text to check out would be the there's a story about a priest named Setna and his son Si-Osir, right? I want to say this is found in the what's called Papyrus Carlsberg Papyrus 207, right? You can also find a rendering of it in Merriam Webster's, ancient Egyptian literature, the third volume. It's a 3-volume set, so it's in the third volume. You can find a rendering of the story in there, right? But in the story, this particular one, it speaks on a battle between the young child Si-Osir and a Kushite priest or magician. And the Kushite priest challenges the Nisu of Kemet and his court to present one among them, a priest, a magician, etc., that can actually read the letter or scroll that he had in his possession without opening it. Right? That's the story. Okay? And his purpose was to prove that no one there had the juju, right? Had the ability or the power to actually pull it off. Now, within the process, right, as the story goes on, the young Si-Osir, the son of Setna, right, he says, I'll read it. I can do it. No sweat. Right? He goes on to read everything that's contained within the scroll, the sealed scroll, with no problem, but then goes further to expose the fact that this story pertained to 500 years ago. It told a story of an event, a happening that took place 500 years ago. And that the magician, all right, the Nubian or Kushite magician that was there today presenting the challenge was the same Kushite magician from 500 years ago. That the Ba of that Kushite magician from 500 years ago was the same Ba that was in this Kushite magician of that time presented challenge. Right? In that he came back with the intention from the Duat. He came back with the intention to bring shame upon the Nisu of Kemet and to bring shame on Kemet in general. But then he goes further to say that he also came back. You see, Tio said, to make sure that he stopped him. That's the story.
That's deep.
That's the story. That's the story.
That's reincarnation.
Reincarnation.
Or Wehamak, repeating life.
Repeating life. Wahamasut, repeating birth. Being born again. You see, this is not something that's foreign to African people. Right? And the understanding for African people amongst many African traditionalists, right, is that we come back through our ancestral line, through our bloodline. And this is why when you see certain names, even amongst, let's say, the Yoruba, right? Babatunde, right? The father has returned. Right? Yetunde, the mother has returned. You see? I know people personally, practitioners personally, right? That hold the concept, right? They hold the concept or they receive the information through divination that one of their immediate ancestors, father, right, that had transitioned, had come back through their son that was just born. And because of that, he received the name Babatunde. Yo, this is African traditions. Right?
You
you get here to the South, you know what I'm saying, in the US, right? You look at that child, that newborn baby, and you say, oh, granddaddy done come back. That's a real simple, memory and residual of an ancient practice. And it is understood that Heru, okay, is always the living Nisu, and Oser is the deceased Nisu. And every Heru goes on to become Oser, and Oser comes back through every living Heru. Right? Those are the facts. So Sukari, right, as Ryan said, fused together, and he continues the journey as Sukari, ultimately to emerge from the east. In the pyramid text, it speaks of Heru as the Hindu or the boat of Sukari, through which his father, Oser Sukari, right, rules Kemet through and as Heru, coming back through the sun. That's the tradition. So reincarnation. Yes, sir.
That's profound. I've heard it mentioned that, reincarnation and these things, it was mentioned, and then the topic of DNA came up, and genetics, and how this is, this being what it really is, that, the DNA sequence of certain genes from certain predecessors come up, and that's simply what it is. We can't hear you, Nisa. We can't hear you.
Everything is always simply. This is all this is, or this simply means, and this is, you know what I mean? Like reduction fallacy, hyper reductionists. We are always trying to make things fit within the parameters of our experience. Actual firsthand experience, and also the scope or limits of our research. That's a problem. You know what I mean? Yo, there are many African traditions, African cultures that we can look at and find concept of reincarnation. But, like I said, that's one that, I think we can go in on and, put a pin in it, because the text, I provided some primaries for us to look at. You know what I mean? You can definitely look at the the coffin text, right? And I'll definitely come back and put in the description the various chapters that pertain to the Ba, okay, and how it actually comes in the world. You already had the understanding that the Ba enters into the world through the crown of your father's head, and then it's transmitted through his seed or via his seed. That's what the ancestors in Kemet taught. That your Ba came into the father of your head, the crown of your father's head, and then was transmitted through his seed at the moment of your conception. And then when we look at what's called the 7 Baru of Ra, it references a male, right? It references strong seed, right? Talks about the incarnation from essence, seed to flesh. 7 Baru of Ra. All right?
Wow.
Just saying. Okay. We also, right? I don't want to be buku long. This is definitely something, that we can pick back up on. I can see maybe some further discussions picking up from here. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You hear me? Myself. Yeah, there's another book I have that ties into this from an African tradition. I believe it's the Akan. No. It's a book called Becoming an Ancestor. You know what I'm saying? So, Becoming an Ancestor, and it ties into what you was talking about. I read a section that was talking about the soul coming through the top of the head and going into it. It lines right up with that. I'll reference that in just a minute. I'll get the book.
Specifically through the soft spot.
Right.
Where the soft spot was. Yo.
Earlier, Nisu, about the synchronicity and the underlying current throughout all of African spiritual traditions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got to do our due diligence, right? Making a statement that these things aren't found in Kemet is the result of moving too fast. This is why we call this particular broadcast Slow Down. Let's take our time. Let's really take the time to study the information thoroughly and then study it within the greater context of African culture and traditions so that we have a holistic or more complete perspective to give a complete answer, and an answer that's not based on our bias, or an answer that just we give just because we don't want to deal with the subject because we ain't got the stripes to deal with it right now. We got to slow down. Let's stick to what you're dealing with, and then once you have taken time to actually study this particular area, then we can come back and address it. And once again, this ain't about whether or not you believe reincarnation to be a reality or XYZ. It's about whether or not the ancestors did. And properly expressing or articulating what exactly it is that they viewed it to be. What exactly their particular view on reincarnation is. That's what we're talking about. Okay? Next issue. Right?
Here, Nisha. And in this, they got a section on, guess what? Reincarnation. And this is from the Ashanti.
Tio.
Okay.
Do I? Hey, we're gonna have to talk about them as it pertains to astrology as well. Because they are in the Akan people, and when we look at astrology, it's a form of divination. And I think that the Akan, their particular naming system, naming children based upon the day of the week that they're born on, based upon the forces that govern certain days of the week. And those things are based on what we've called historically astrology, right? Or what has come to be known as astrology, I should say. This is a form of divination system, form of divination. When you hear people talk about the 7 African powers, okay, the 7 African powers, right? That is based on forces that are associated with what's called the 7 original planets, which the 7 days of the week are named after. They get their name from these planets, right? But these names for these planets aren't simply arbitrary names. These names are taken from deities in the culture that the language, ultimately stemmed from. You understand? So when we look at, for instance, ancient Kemet, right? We have to understand, first and foremost, let's deal with astrology. What is that? Let's deal with that. What is that? Let's deal with astrology first, right? Is okay. Do we have a good understanding of astrology, first and foremost? What is it? And how is it different from astronomy? Okay. Now, I would say both astrology and astronomy, take into, there's a certain level or degree of observation that takes place. It's based on the observation of, the movements and cycles of celestial bodies, within the universe, within our particular solar system, especially, and based on the observation of those patterns, of those rhythms, of those cycles, right? There is also an observation of events, right? Or a mapping or clocking of events that take place during these cycles. Okay? Now, let's stop there. That's astrology. Okay? That's astrology. Right? This is something that ultimately from here, Okay, they're paying attention to patterns and cycles in the cosmos. Okay, and patterns and cycles here terrestrially. Right? So from here, right, these both of these are based on actual observation. Okay, over time. That's the foundation of it. Now, from there, building on or ascertaining a correlation or a sense of causality grows from there, or association, I should say, right? Where every time that this particular event, okay, takes place celestially, right? This particular cycle happens celestially, we see this particular phenomenon take place terrestrially. Okay? Right? So at the least, there's some type of correlation, some type of association that takes place, right? But causality, something that, we can discuss later. In Kemet, right, you have names for the planets, you have names for stars, right, certain stars, right, you have names for constellations, right, and you also have names or certain forces, certain neteru, that are said to be the neter of this particular star, the neter of this particular planet. Right? The planet has a name, and then there's a neter that rules over that planet. That's in Kemet. Right? And when we look at the actual literature, absolutely, there was an idea or an understanding, okay, that there's some type of effect, right? There's some kind of working that's taking place, that these forces are performing through these celestial bodies. Okay? And a lot of the cosmology and things of that nature are based upon, what's actually taking place with these celestial bodies. And there are calendars. There are calendars, right, that take on the form of some type of divination, designating certain cycles as auspicious and certain cycles as inauspicious. Certain days as auspicious, certain other days as inauspicious. You see? These things absolutely exist. You know what I mean? You look to the festival calendars, and you can find examples of what I'm speaking of. Study the temple calendars and the festival calendars. The feast days, right? And the lunar calendars, right? And how each day of the month, right, or the lunar cycle is associated with a particular neter, right? All astrological systems ultimately have their origins there. You looking at Western astrology, I say, Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Venus, all of these planets are named after their gods. You see? Right? When you look at, it's called Vedic astrology, all of their signs are governed by a planet, and the planet is governed by a deva, a deity, right? And the star lords and whatnot have a deva or deity that's over them. Right? When you look at the Akan system of naming, right? Each day of the week is associated with a deity, an abosom, and a name is given to the person that reflects the energy or the force or the deity, the abosom, that is said to have placed its imprint on their head or their personality. It's a form of divination. These things absolutely existed in Kemet and in Africa. They exist. All right? Now whether we want to believe in it or not is a totally different story. It's not here nor there. But to say that we've never dealt with it or that it didn't exist, we're gonna have to really do some serious study. Now look, did it look like what it looks like now? For instance, the Dendera zodiac, okay, is something that we have as coming during the late period, okay, Ptolemaic period, etc. So on, right? All of the signs, right, that we know today, the 12 signs of the zodiac, this, that, and third, is that something that the ancestors in Kemet were dealing with before then? That's a different story, right? They had something that came to be known as decans, that they based their actual for instance 10-day week off of the rising of these stars. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? So these forces have names and they have Neteru that were over them, said to rule them, right? You gotta study that to see what that actually looked like. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's not necessarily always identical or blanket when we think astrology, right? There's once again systems that are very simple, and there's systems that are very complex or sophisticated, right, or intricate. But it's all a form of divination. Okay. Anybody want to add on to that? Behudet, you got anything you want to add to that? Irief?
Then I don't have anything to add on to that.
Okay. All right. Shout out to the family in the in the chat room tuning in. If you guys got anything you want to add or any comments or questions, by all means, feel free to get in there and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Definitely, there's several texts that we can look at to verify what I'm saying about the astrology. Study the decans, right? Study the names, research the names for the planets, right? And study the literature that pertains to them. Study and learn about the associations of the Neteru with each one of these planets. And that exact same system, almost, that in and of itself almost becomes somewhat replicated or like a cookie cutter type of situation that became the foundation for these other systems. How the celestial bodies came to be associated with certain deities within their cosmology and tradition, and that these forces, these deities, work through these celestial bodies or had an effect, right? Some kind of way that reflected their qualities. Okay. But we're gonna keep moving. All right. So the next thing, gemstones. Let's talk about it. Gemstones, right? It's like, yo, we even get a little petty with it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Okay, so we don't even have to waste a whole lot of time with gemstones. Like, you know, gemstones are popular. You know what I mean? They're popular amongst the spiritual people that deal with spirituality, right? You see gemstones as as a popular thing for folk to wear for different purposes. Each stone is said to have, different effect, etc., so on. And this is something because of, I believe strongly, this is because of the fact that, the European pseudo, authors and scholars such as Blavatsky and whatnot began to, talk about them and write about them. And because much of what our people in the quote unquote conscious community deal with or believe in terms of worldview and practice has been connected to them, okay, the Theosophical Society, that, this is another aspect of our culture that has fallen victim to to that whole thing. So look at this. Dealing with the Neteru, I think that's the first place to start. This is ultimately rooted, or we can deal with this by understanding the nature of the Neteru. The Neteru are living forces of nature. They're not concepts. They're not principles. They're not symbols. Okay, these are forces of nature that can be observed, that can be interacted with, and through the process of ritual and initiation, you come to be able, you become able to identify them, to observe them, to engage them, to interact and interface with them, and to act upon them. Okay, and it's understood that these forces are intrinsic to reality, to existence, to life, and that they manifest and are intrinsic to every level of life, every single kingdom, right? When we're talking biology, plant, animal, mineral, these forces, okay, are intrinsic and operable. Okay, right? And this is something that our ancestors understood. So they associated certain plants with certain Neteru. And they held the view that this particular force embodies, or this particular plant, this particular tree embodies this particular Neter. Okay? This particular plant, right, or Neter lives within this tree. Right? So this is where the concept of sacred trees come from. Sacred plants. This is something that, they understood. Right? This is their worldview. We're not dealing with our Negro peonized, crackerized worldview. This is our African ancestral worldview. Everything has a ka that speaks to the qualities, the characteristics, the character, the persona of that thing. Right? Something beyond gross physical, mundane material. You know what I mean? And the same thing can be said, of course, with minerals, which is where gemstones fall into play or come into play. Right? You absolutely find epithets or renew names of certain forces being referred to as, Lady of Turquoise. Right? Heteru. Lady of Emerald, Malachite. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Right? You see in the Pertim Hira, certain stones being prescribed for certain rituals in the text. Jasper, carnelian, certain metals associated with certain deities and considered taboo for others. So there's a Neter called Nimti, right? Who the metal that he was associated with was silver and gold was boot for him, taboo. And there's a whole cosmology and story surrounding that, and seeking to explain that particular ritual and custom. You see? Nemty, Nemty. That's how it's transliterated. You can look him up and you'll see all about it. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to freestyle. We don't have to freestyle anything. And, in terms of the use of these things, you know what I mean? The use of these things as, for medical purposes, right? There's always been an intrinsic relationship or nature to our traditional medical practices, right? What some people would refer to as magicians, we would call physicians, right? Or what they might call a physician, we might call a magician. You see? The use of herbs and prayers and talismans, right? For protections. You see? The use of divination when dealing with someone health-wise. The creating of certain objects for them to wear for their healing, for their protection. We don't want to waste a whole lot of time with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go now to I'm going to share my screen. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to go to Papyrus Berlin, or the Berlin Papyrus 3027. Okay? And we're going to show an actual medical text or a prescription, right, to protect a newborn. Okay? To protect a newborn from a particular disease that pertains to newborn children. Okay? 1 second, going to share the screen real quick. Okay, I say, y'all let me know if y'all can see that.
2.
Okay, so this particular text, right? You see the source? Papyrus Berlin, 3027. Okay, it's a ritual prescription, a medical prescription, okay, to protect a child from a disease called Neshu. Neshu's disease. Okay. And we're talking about blue pearls of lapis lazuli are on it. Right? And you see the transliteration of the Medunater, or what's called MDC, Manual de Codage, over here. So you can always check the translation. We're just going to read the translation, but you can always go back, stop and pause the video. You can always go back check the source for yourself and see if it's actually there. This is another website where you can probably find this particular text, and all of my colleagues there that deal with Kemet know exactly about this website right here. You know, we're not gonna act brand new. You know where to go. All right. So, protection from the Nishu disease, right? A mother and child. Blue pearls of lapis lazuli are on it. Green beads of turquoise are on it. Red pearls of jasper are on it. The pearls have fallen on the rump in the water, more than fish scales on the river, more than bird feathers from the sky. Escape Nishu disease. Fall to the ground. Escape Nishu disease. Fall to the ground. One should speak, right? These are the instructions. One should speak this, saying about 3 gemstones, one of lapis lazuli, another of jasper, and another from turquoise. Be raised on a fine thread from the nedge fabric, particular type of fabric, and given to the child's neck. Right here. Once again, here's your source. Okay? And there are many examples of this, right? There are many examples, right? I shouldn't have to even go through this because the due diligence should have already been done before we make and take certain stances and positions publicly. Before we take certain positions publicly, we should do our due diligence. You see? When we don't do our due diligence and we make certain claims, right? Or we shoot certain things down, we don't know, we may be attacking something that our ancestors actually stood on, and we are doing the exact same thing that those that we call pseudo making shit up about Kemet, we are doing the exact same thing. Freestyling. Speaking our opinion. Right? And I'm your brother. I love you. You know what it is.
Well, that's just
we got him. Go ahead.
That's just all that means is just this. It's simply that.
Yo, you can find this exact same practice today, still being practiced throughout the continent. Right? What do you think your beads are? Your elekes, your coral beads. If you practice Ifa, you go and you're getting ready to birth your Orisa, birth your pot, and you go and you pick certain stones from the water. What do you think that is? You see? You look at the Zar tradition in the Sudan. Right? In Kemet today, you look at even the Sudanese, Nubian, right? Sufi practitioners. You see the exact same practice. Right? This particular prescription calls for beads. Right? Sometimes they actually have you just thread a piece of fabric, such as the fabric that's referenced here, while speaking a particular incantation over it, right? An invocation or hymn or prayer over it, while tying knots as you speak it over it, and then you tie that onto the person that needs healing as a healing, as a protection for them, a medicine. You see? Right? So it doesn't always call for gemstones. Some rituals do. Some rituals don't involve gemstone, right? Some involve, you writing a particular hymn or prayer or invocation or name or image of a neter on a piece of papyri and then rinsing it off with water, blending with a particular type of herb, and then giving to the person that needs the healing to drink. as medicine. And this is something that's still done today amongst the Zar practitioners, amongst the Bori practitioners, amongst the Sufi practitioners in the Sudan, in Chad, in Kemet. Right? And then sometimes there's no herbs involved at all. Right? In case we wanna say, well, it's the herb that has the effect. Well, shit, sometimes there's no herbs involved at all. You know what I mean? Now, whether you believe this particular ritual works, right, or not, is neither here nor there. So if you want to call the ancestor pseudo here, go on and take that position. Go ahead. However, what you're not going to do is say that the ancestors didn't do this or didn't do that, and you don't know what you're talking about just because you don't believe in it or you don't like it. All right?
You.
Y'all all right?
Oh, I'm great.
Yo.
Where?
Anybody want to add on? Please feel free to do so. Any questions or comments? We take it.
Yeah, I actually read that. I don't remember where I read it, but I read that even the people who were illiterate that couldn't read the text, they would actually still write it out and pour water on it and drink the water to be endowed with the power that was conveyed through the writing. This was years ago. I read that before I started
writing. Absolutely. They did it for certain things, to ritually memorize it, right? Write down whatever they're trying to memorize, to wash, then rinse it away with water and then drink it. You know what I'm saying? They did it with certain medicines by drawing certain hymns, certain prayers, drawing certain certain images of the Netaru and names on it, and washing it away with water and then drinking it. And then I see Sintaji in there. You got what's called the Metronic Stela, which is an example of what's called a Sippi, right? Sipi, right? C-I-P-P-I, okay? That's what the scholars call it, Sippi, where a particular stela was created, and then water would be poured over the top of it, and the information, the hymns, the prayers, and things of that nature, and the imagery of the Neter that's depicted on the stela would infuse the water that's poured over it with the energy, with the second, right? And then that water would be given to drink as medicine or as a protection. You understand? So, hey, gotta know what we're talking about here. Some folk might say that's pseudo. Hey, can't say the ancestors wasn't doing that though. And you can't say that they're on African people today still, right? That aren't doing those things, going to the sacred lakes, going to the sacred rivers and streams, right? And taking the water from the sacred lake that's associated with this particular Loa or voodoo, this particular Aboson, this particular Orisha. And then that water is given to the practitioner to drink as medicine and protection. You ain't gonna say they're not doing it. You might not believe in it. You might call it pseudo, but you're not gonna say African people aren't doing it and haven't been doing it from time immemorial. You're not gonna do that. Not gonna do that. You know what I mean? All right. I see we had some questions in here. Let me get to them. Okay, the brother Jador Spirit, he says, are there any intellectuals who are continuing Kemetic philosophical thought, such as looking at animals in our North American environment and taking lessons from them, or is there no need for that? Hey, that's an excellent question, and the answer is for sure, yes, it's happening. pretty much any ATR, right? And we've seen it happen with voodoo. Okay, we've seen it happen to a certain extent with Ifa. And for those that actually practice the Kemetic tradition, it absolutely happens where we are also expanding the tradition and the cosmology to fit within the context of our current ecology, right? So there are certain animals that are found here that we associate with certain Neteru, or understand that this particular Neter manifests through this animal, manifests through this tree, though this animal or tree may not be found in Kemet, right? But we see certain similarities in the qualities of the tree and understand that the Neter is coming through that. You know, certain qualities of the animal and understand that the Neter is coming through that. So absolutely, absolutely, you know, we are doing that, and that's important work to ensure that the tradition continues, right? The tradition, because that's all, you know, when our ancestors left the Nile Valley, they went and then they adapted their cosmology to their new ecological situation, you know. So we doing the same thing. We doing the same thing. All right. Somebody help out Sin Ujo. I don't understand, you know, the question. You say you're trying to click on something to get to the prescriptions on the site. Which site? Okay. Taji, what grounds do people have to stand on when making claims to refute the reality of the traditions? That's the whole problem in and of itself. You know what I mean? That's the whole thing in a nutshell. There are no grounds outside of their opinion or whatever methodology they're coming from or feel to be superior. Okay. So if it's let's say for instance, if it's the scientific method, it should be based on some type of observation at the least to begin with. At the least to begin with. So a scientific approach, okay, to studying Kemet and making claims about Kemet must first and foremost begin with an observation of the actual literature that Kemet wrote. So if you haven't, like for instance, that particular you know, papyrus that I referenced for the, you know, gemstones, right? If you haven't came across that or other medical papyri, right? Or any other papyri that has rituals, right? You haven't done your due diligence. You haven't done your due diligence, right? So we gotta stop just making statements based on how we feel. You know what I mean? And because something doesn't fit into what we consider to be, you know, we are physicalists. We have become physicalists, materialists. You know what I mean? And don't come at me talking about everything's material, everything's physical. Yeah, I understand, but you know damn well what I mean, right? We have become to the point where if we can't see it with these, you know, then it ain't real, right? If we can't measure it with the mundane instrumentation, okay, through which, you know, gross physical phenomenon is calculated, weighed, and measured, then it ain't real. That's the way that we, you know, we believe, you know, that our consciousness is the end result of our brain functioning, because our brains are machines and we are animals. This is what these people believe. Right? Even though your consciousness is something that gives all of these quote unquote scientists goddamn nightmares, because they can't grasp it. They don't understand it. They call it a problem, the problem of consciousness. They open up their head and they can't find it. You see? You understand that the way that these things work, you know, taking in light and process, you know, your brain processing it. You understand the way that these work with your eardrum and vibrations resonating off of your eardrum, allowing you to hear. But if I ask you to imagine, you know, your favorite song, you know what I mean? Or you know, to hear it in your head, or imagine your favorite movie or your favorite show, right? To see it in your head. How does it work? How are you able to do that? Do you see it? I asked you, do you see it? Do you hear it? Every last one of you say, yeah. But then I ask you, do you see that which is within your being that is seeing those things within your head without the aid of your physical eyes? Right? Do you see that which is within you that is hearing these things without the aid of your physical ears? Yo, you gotta slow down. We gotta slow down. Pump the brakes. We moving too damn fast, right? We moving too fast. You know, pump the brakes. Slow down. Do our due diligence. You know, don't be so quick to try and fit African worldviews into a westernized paradigm. And then trying to reinterpret our traditions in a way that makes you comfortable in your Negropeanized worldview. Slow down. Take your time. We always getting on everybody's ass about slowing down and taking their time and doing their due diligence and learning properly, learning proper methodology before getting out here to teach. Let us do the same thing. This is medicine. Let us do the same thing. Yo, I say, y'all want to add on?
You see, you said it all, man. When you were talking, you were mentioning about the material, how people will try to, you know, front like they, you know, like they know what you're saying, or they'll front like when you talk about material, everything's material. You know, from an African perspective, yes, material and spirit are one. There's no separation. You see, when we coming from an African perspective, we cannot just objectify everything and turn and take away the spirit. That's what a lot of these so-called, a lot of these scholars, I said so-called, but scholars who are in a certain worldview that is opposite of the African worldview do. They are not holistic. They are separated, and that's the European mind. I need to separate this and take it here and put it in a nice little compartment so then I can control it. You see what I'm saying? And if I got control over it, I got control over the information. I got control over the people because I got this under my grasp. And there are some things that are beyond your grasp in the physical sense. So we got to, and we talk a lot about being objective. There is no such thing as complete objectivity. That is a European construct of taking the spirit out and separating it for control. There's always a subjectivity to everything. Because everything that you're observing, you have your world through view behind it. There's no separating what my experiences are from my observations here. That is impossible, and it was a political tool to get control of the information by those who created the term objectivity. You see? Now,
yes,
they scholars.
Go ahead.
If they study some of our scholars who deal with, you know, these type of European paradigms that are controlling us today, then they would know that if they were more African-centered, instead of just going to sources that are outside of Africa. I'm not saying don't go to those sources, but I'm saying you have to go to those who have a worldview that is to empower us and utilize that more so than the others who are utilizing their paradigms to empower themselves.
I say, I was gonna say, you say you wasn't in class last night, but those exact words were mentioned last night in respect to understanding that always between our observation or our perception, our consciousness, our awareness, and our viewing of the world is our worldview. Right? Now, worldview is constructed, it's a construct that is comprised of all of the concepts, ideas, beliefs, opinions, and experiences. Okay? That make up what we call mind. You see? And so that worldview becomes the window through which we view the world, the filter through which we view the world, and it becomes the doorway through which we approach and engage the world. You see? And interpret reality, right? It's the filter of our interpretation. So this is a very, very, very important thing to keep in mind. And we damn sure got to keep it in mind when we are looking at our ancestral traditions and understand, like, yo, we have not gone through a process of re-Africanization, of reclaiming, of remembering, right? Right? And we got to stop making statements about a tradition from the outside looking in. You know what I mean? Yo, we gotta slow down. We gotta cool it. We just gotta cool it. That's all. There's a lot of good work being done. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great work being done, right? But when it comes to the experience and the worldview of a practitioner, certain things you're not going to understand. But even with that, just in being honest and taking the time to study the literature is enough to let you know what the ancestors, how they looked at things. If your goal is to actually truly present them in the light that they actually existed in. That's what we're talking about. Okay?
So
yo,
I'd like to say one more thing.
You
were talking earlier about the scientific method, saying how it was utilized and how it still can be utilized. I just want to remind everybody that, the scientific method has been used historically by those who have historically harmed us as a political tool to set a certain indoctrination on the minds of the people. And they're doing it to this day. You see the scientific method being used now to promote an agenda that they are using, homosexuality. You see them using it for that. You see them using it on all different levels, but that's just one. They're coming with scientific method to say that there are certain genes, even though they haven't done their due diligence, and you can tear that apart. Now, however, when we're looking at the scientific method with our practices in ATRs and more specific Kemet, you got to understand that the sources that a lot of us are coming from with their opinions on what is being said based off of the so-called science is not from us. It is by those who by those who have historically harmed us. And I came across an elder and he gave me a jewel with history. He said that history doesn't repeat itself. People repeat history. And the first thing I thought of with that statement was, John Henry Clark. When he said history is a current event, meaning that people are going to repeat history currently because everything, like, there's nothing new under the sun. So when you see these people, like, they have miraculously gotten a more moral compass and have seen the error of their ways through scientific research and discovery. And now they're going to stop using their political agendas in their science. That's pseudo thought. But I digress.
I say, excellent. Yo, let me look in here real quick. Did I miss anything? Did we miss anything? Did we miss anything? You know,
I got cut off a few times, so I hate to say, I don't know, but I know I mentioned like the oracles and the divination, and then I seen a question in there, and I might have missed it too. You know, the response to one of the brothers' questions, Jador Spirit.
okay.
Intellectuals who are continuing comedic philosophical thought.
Yeah, we dealt with that one.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, we dealt with that one. Divination, like oracles, like that's something else that, like, yo, you know, we calling everything pseudo. Why don't we while we throw, hold on, I see the brother Ujo. Which question, man? Let me make sure we get it. Is it the question pertaining to the website? Let me see if there was something earlier. Gotta be the question pertaining to the website. Okay, so let me go back over here and see if I can help you out. If you got the URL, what was the other one? You had another one? Oh, let me see. I love to hear how our time of birth affects our energy. That's way back. Like being born in October at a certain time, how is that energy different from being born in Aquarius based on zodiac and sidereal? I know they're air signs, but how does the sun in those zodiac signs of Libra or Aquarius change? So yeah, I say what we do. You know, we have to come back or devote another time to actually going in depth on astrology. Right? Yeah, that wasn't the intention of today, right? You know, today we simply want to know what our ancestors were dealing with versus what they were not dealing with. Okay, what they believed in versus what they didn't believe in, what was a part of their tradition and their practice and their worldview versus what was not. So, you know, doing a full, like, you know, or, you know, a more in-depth breakdown of astrology, you know, we have to save that one for another time. You know, I actually would love to go more, you know, to get more involved with what was actually in Kemet as it pertains to astrology, you know. Then there's another brother by the name of Asar Imba, and he's you know with the group Hekanu Neter. You find him on Facebook. You know, he deals with the you know, breaking down the astrological text, and then there was zodiac, you know, etc. So on. So, you know, he got some videos up. You know what I mean? So, you know, check the brother out. You know what I mean? Show some love. Okay. All right. Now, you know, divination. You know, did they have oracles in Kemet, etc. So on. Now, this is something that I actually I dealt with, you know, before. Definitely. You know, I haven't heard that one as of late, but yes, divination systems, right? On par with you know, the divination systems that we find in West Africa, Odu Ifa, okay, you know, Erindin Ogun, okay, you know, Obi, right? There are equivalent systems in Kemet, absolutely, right? We have texts, we have the primary sources that speak to these divination systems. And, you know, we even have articles, you know, we even have articles that, you know, contain, you know, the primaries. We have the primaries that actually have the questions that the ancestors were posing to the oracles, right? And we have examples where, you know, you have a divination like system set in place where it's like a casting method, and then you have, you know, divination via a priest or medium, like Hamneter, which is why scholars, and, you know, based on, you know, what the Greeks, the term used by the Greeks to refer to the high priest, the Hamneter came to be associated with prophets, or referred to as prophets, because they were the diviners. And through divination, a method of casting, as well as through ritual or spirit possession. What was that, Benu? Spirit possession, right? Like you see in voodoo, like you see in Ifa, like you see in, you know, in the Akan tradition, when someone's ridden by the lower, right? When someone is possessed, right, by the Orisha or the Egungun. You see? You see? When someone is possessed by a Bori, by a Zar, by an Abosol, that's what I'm talking about, right? This force comes into, this spirit comes into the individual and takes command of their vehicle and is able to move and act and speak through them. Yeah, we got primaries demonstrating that this was a reality, an experience of our ancestors in Kemet. All right. You know, one particular instance, it tells the account of, you know, the festivals of Amun, and someone had stolen some fabrics, I want to say, from a man, and the man went to the oracle and asked the oracle of Amun if he would help him find out who stole his fabric. And he presented the oracle with a list and went through a process of elimination via divination to determine who has stolen it. And it went through all of the names, ultimately till it got to the thief, singled out the thief. And the thief said, yo, you saying that I stole it? Oracle said, yeah, you stole it. You the thief, right? So he says, nah, I ain't steal nothing. You know, it's a lie, it's a conspiracy or whatever. He goes on to another oracle of Amun and asks the question, am I the thief? Did I steal the fabric? Right? That oracle of Amun in this town says, yes, you stole it. Goes to another one, asks the same question. The oracle of Amun tells him, yes, you stole it. He goes to two more, ultimately 5 oracles of Amun found in different cities, and asked the question, trying to see if one would change or corroborate his account. Every last one of them condemned him as the thief, but the last oracle of Amun, right? The priest, it says, or Amun is what it says, dragged the man, the thief, out into the town center and beat him, right? Beat him, he flogged him, and then ordered that he give back the fabric, right? And everyone, all the scholars are convinced and clear that it was Amun in possession of a priest, his Hamneter, that beat the man, that beat the thief. Okay, that's one example. I'll post the link to the article, you know, in the in the description. Okay, and if you hit me, you know, and you want it, I can send you a link to download it from my Google Drive. No sweat. Okay. Matter of fact, I might just post the download link, you know, in my Google, you know, in the description, so you can go on and get that. You know what I'm saying? Ain't gotta waste no time with it, right? So we got that one, and then there's also the story of the possessed princess of Becton, right? And you know, that's another one that speaks to ritual possession, right? This is a reality in African traditions, and it was a reality in Kemet. I know there's some out there that say this doesn't happen because, you know, for some reason we want to change Kemet and make Kemet into this whole westernized, Europeanized everything, because we still look down upon, we still got these cracker eyes. We still look down upon the traditions and the practices of African people. So we want to look down upon animal sacrifice. We want to look down upon offerings and shrines and rituals and invocations and possession and divination, right? And all the things that we talked about today, such as astrology, such as gemstones, right? Talismans, all these things. Because we still battling with this wazi in our heads. So, you know, this is reality, though, for our people, time immemorial. All right? So, you know, I don't want to keep going with it, but, yo, I say, you know, there are divination systems. There's a simple method of casting. There's a more elaborate method of casting, right? There are divination systems. And I think I'll come back in the future and do a presentation on each one. And that's the way we do it. All right. So let me check the chat, see if we got any comments or questions. Okay, I see Ujo. He says some say we can't be a priest until we are mounted or rid by a deity or reach the Abyssal and voodoo. Yeah, some say that. Some say that, and then there are some traditions where, you know, depending on the type of priest you are, you should never be possessed. Like, you know, some traditions say that a Babo Lawo should never be possessed, or, you know, become possessed by an Orisha, etc. so on. Right? So, you know, there's you know, different criterions for determining who and who is not qualified to become a priest. Okay. All right, yo, I want to say Dua, you know, Dua family, you know, thank you for tuning in, for being patient with us. You know, once again, the purpose of this particular presentation was to encourage, you know, to encourage our brothers and sisters out here that are doing the good work in scholarship. Keep doing the good work. Keep doing the good work, right? Your comrades, with colleagues, I appreciate the work that you're doing. You know what I mean? However, let's slow down. Let's pump our brakes. Let's not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, you know, one of the reasons why we're greatly disorganized as a community of, you know, let's say the progressive information community or the quote unquote conscious community. One of the reasons why we don't really get anything done is because we're disorganized, because organization, structure, and discipline reminds us of organized Abrahamic religion. And because we associate that you see, with you know, something negative, the structure, right? We shy away from structure and organization altogether, discipline altogether, hierarchy and chain of command altogether. You see, it's a problem, right? And we doing the same thing with when it comes to scholarship. It's like, yo, yeah, you see pseudo cat over here, pseudo cat over there. You know what I'm saying? You see charlatan, you know, A over here, charlatan B over there, and because you know they might have some things with them that are taken from questionable sources, or might not have any sources at all except what they're talking about, right? We want to throw everything that they're talking about, you know, out without examining every single thing, right? And saying before actually making statements about, okay, this isn't African, or this isn't in our tradition, this isn't in our culture, right? We make those statements before we actually do the due diligence to determine whether it's actually there or not. Okay, and there's a lot of other things, like, you know what I mean, Neteru as symbols and principles and some more. You know what I mean? There's some, we got to deal with that. There's some folk talking that trash, and it's not correct. That our ancestors just viewed them as symbols or principles or concepts. You know what I mean? Or that you know, the rituals that we see are symbolic. They weren't making offerings, especially to the ancestors. They weren't making offerings to the ancestors. It's not correct. Yeah, they were. They were making offerings to the ancestors. The Ka is feeding on the Ka of the offering. It was understood. No one believed that, you know, the physical body, what they called the Ka, was going to eat the physical food after they were quote unquote physically dead. That's understood. Nobody's making that argument. What is being understood or expressed here is that the Ka, that particular aspect of the individual, is what's being fed. That's what's being engaged, you see, in the practice of ancestral veneration. All right? So there's some issues we got to deal with and address. And, you know, in the process of banging out the tradition and what is and is not Kemetic spirituality, we're going to take our time with it. All right, so we're about to slow this thing down. You know what I mean? And we're going to really, really get into it. All right? See the good brother Jador Spirit, he says, you should do a video on self-determination and revolutionary perspectives from African traditional perspectives. I think that's much needed. Yo, I'm with it. I'm with it. You know what I mean? Definitely the importance of making sure that our revolutionary perspectives, worldviews, and also initiatives are intrinsic to our traditions and our practices. You know, they have been from time immemorial. You know, but once again, getting over here and taking certain communist or certain socialist revolutionary ideological inclinations or leanings, okay, we seek to divorce ourselves from our African traditions and spiritual practices, okay, as opposed to looking at them as intrinsic together. Our nationalism being intrinsic to our worldview, traditional worldview and practice. So yeah, I'm definitely with that. You know, we'll see, you know, look at the schedule, see when we can set it up, and, you know, we'll go in. Not a problem. Okay. Sinu, Behudet, Irief, y'all got anything y'all want to say or add before we get out of here? Also, last call from the chat. Last call for comments and questions from the chat room.
I just like to thank Nisu for the session and for comments that you made, and, you know, using the primaries to show exactly what our ancestors were doing, and, you know, what is and isn't within our traditions. You know, I really appreciate that. I appreciate, you know, all the brothers and sisters that came on to join today, you know, so we can get this good word out and set the record straight. you know, and spark up some good conversations and have people start looking deeper into what our ancestors did before we try to determine based off of our own subjective, objective views.
To you. So likewise, definitely thank you, because like I said before, I feel like this is really this point in time, and just with social media going around, I mean, like, one quick, it can be seen by thousands of people in just a matter of a few seconds, and there's just so many people, like, having a conversation like this, people can just start asking questions and asking questions and asking questions, and dealing with things that necessarily don't pertain to Kemet. But this conversation here specifically was dealing with what was actually done in Kemet, things that our ancestors were able to utilize. So the fact that you were able to cite the sources, bring them up, especially now I got the computer, I can start really checking it out instead of just doing everything by phone. But it's powerful. Dua Nater, Duau, and Dua Nasu. As always.
Right. Dude, Dua Nater. Hey, definitely, like I said, I appreciate y'all getting on here, getting it in with me and whatnot. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're gonna definitely take note of the of the suggestions on subjects to deal with, and make sure that we devote some time to to dealing with them. And if you hadn't got a chance, get over to henensu.com, www.henensu.com. You know what I mean? We go on and put that in the joint. Henensu.com. Get over there to henensu.com and check us out. Find my work, books and whatnot in the in the marketplace there, and then also you can find some of the juju. You can get your juju, order your juju over there. That's right. You know what I'm saying? We not out here trying to act like the juju ain't true, right? So divination, you can schedule your divination. You can contact me, you can contact my wife, you know what I'm saying, for readings and whatnot. And much more. And you can also find out about the tour to Kemet that we're doing. We got one coming up in December the 3rd through the 11th, Kemet in December. And this tour all-inclusive package is $2,600, and the insights into the culture and the tradition that you're going to find on that particular tour, okay, is unmatched, right? So we're going to get into the actual tradition, into the actual worldview, you know what I mean, and actually deal with the tradition and the culture as we find it. So you're going to understand the cosmology, you're going to understand the nature of the Neteru, you're going to understand the rituals and the offerings and the sacrifices, okay, in accordance with our ancestral worldview. And then we're going to actually plug you in with some elders of the Zar tradition, some elders in Gebsahel Nubian village, okay, to show the the things that have been retained, the practices and the ideas that have been retained by them in these traditions for all this time, right? Since way back. So we're gonna go through the sacred sites. We're gonna go to the temples, from Cairo all the way down to Aswan. You know what I mean? And that's $2,600, and that includes the airfare, that includes the cruise down the Nile, that includes the food, that includes the transportation, that includes the entries to all of the sites and the information that we're going to be dealing with. So definitely I encourage everyone to tune in more often, and to check us out at the website, and to join us on that pilgrimage to the Nile Valley. You know what I'm saying? You're able to contact me. All of the itinerary, the registration forms, everything's on the website. Kukim Kemet Tour, Kemet in December. Okay, and then other tours that we got going on, next summer, Kemet, Cool Kim Kemet tour, summer 2019, and then also the Nubia tour. We got that joint going on as well. So, that being said, I mean, Uncle Josh and Ned, YTM Tep, I see you in the building, Sean. Any Harriet Calfani in the building. All right. We're gonna definitely keep the build going so that we can go in and deal with some things. So I mean, all that being said, signing out. Synapse, be well, Shim Motel.